tee it up a little bit at the Desert Inn. Pretty nice venue for some golf for an old NBA guy, huh?
Oh, it's a lot of fun to come out here. Nice weather. Obviously, Las Vegas means hot, but you can't beat the sunshine. Great course, a wonderful facility here at the Desert Inn. They've really done a miraculous job, not only with the hotel and the pool facilities, but inside, anything you want to do. And of course, we get to play golf, so you can't beat that. It beats working.
Plus, you can gamble if you choose that, right?
Well, that's not my strong point, but I'm sure some of the guys have visited it more than once.
Let me take you back to the days at Notre Dame. What went into the recruitment of you to that particular college, and how many colleges were after you? Because you were a big man coming out, everybody wanted you.
Yeah, I could have pretty much went anywhere I wanted to go. I pretty much narrowed it down pretty quickly, and I visited probably 4 or 5 different schools. I remember I visited Duke and Maryland and South Carolina when Frank McGuire was there, and Notre Dame was one of those schools. My father having been there, and my quote-unquote uncle, not real uncle, Angelo Bertelli, Heisman Trophy winner back in '43. Sure. So everybody assumed I was automatically going to Notre Dame because of my connections. But my father always said, "You've got to feel comfortable. It's your decision. I'm not going back to school, no matter how much he would have liked to." But I had to make that decision for myself. And at that time, it turned out to be pretty close. But Notre Dame, I felt at that time was the best place for me because of the education and the opportunity where that basketball program was headed at that time. And of course, you can't beat the recognition. Notre Dame plays all over the country, and great exposure. So it ended up working out well for me. So I have no second guesses or no regrets at all.
What were some of the things you took from Digger Phelps, as well as some of the people that maybe the public hasn't heard of at Notre Dame that had an impact, not on just your basketball career, but on life?
Oh boy, there's so many great people associated with Notre Dame. Not even people that went there or graduated, the so-called subway alumni, people you meet all across the country. But at the school, made great friends, different professors. One of my professors was Monk Malloy, who's now the president of Notre Dame. So I did pass his class, by the way. I think I got a B. So, but great people. Moose Krause was a wonderful influence. Having known my father over the years, and then to be there and be associated with him, and had a great impact on me. He's such a wonderful guy, and spread so many years across a span of so many years, going back from my father all the way up till the 80s, and then when he retired and fortunately passed away within the last 5 or 10 years. Just a great man, just a guy that influences you so much because he has all the stories, and he's got had a great personality. He was a real influence on me. So you just meet people along the way. Somebody touches you in some way or another, whether it be Father Hesburgh at the time, the president then, or the coaching staff, or the people you meet along the campus. It's a very special place, and I think people realize that either through meeting someone or getting the chance to go to the university and seeing it for themselves. It has some kind of magical powers in its own way, and I'm sure those people that say either love Notre Dame or hate Notre Dame, that is partly true, but they can't deny that there is a little bit of magic, because I think people have been on the other end of the magic as far as the sports are concerned. So it was a great experience for me.
Still lingering effects. I know you got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish shirt on there.
A gift from my mother-in-law of all people, so it fits and it looked pretty good. So people still associate me with Notre Dame. I think having a name like Kelly, they think number one, I'm Irish, and I'm probably the furthest thing from Irish. But you fool some of the people most of the time, anyhow. So I still follow them a lot. I hope their basketball program gets back to where it should be. I think John McLeod is a great coach, and need to get players in there. Of course, everyone follows Notre Dame football, so it's a special place. I don't get out there as much as you'd like, but every once in a while to attend a football game in the fall is a lot of fun. It's a great experience and a great weekend to be a part of.
I want to take it back to the awesome front line. You, Woolridge, Lane Beer. What was the chemistry like? What kind of stuff went on in the locker room? Was it an instantaneous fit between you guys?
No, we had a lot of talent at school. Maybe some people would say maybe too much talent, because Digger played a lot of people, and I don't think that was exactly conducive for all of us, because guys didn't get a lot of minutes, extended minutes like they do now. It's not very unusual that a kid play the whole 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. Well, just for instance, go back to my senior year in 1981, and being an All-American, I only averaged 26 minutes a game. I mean, that's unheard of. And that, I think, relates to maybe we had too much talent. Digger trying to find time for everybody, and that's not always the best case scenario. because usually you got to find a nice 7 or 8 man rotation, and we all got along well. I mean, we were talented guys that knew how to play basketball, and if you get guys that know how to play, understand the game, and take that out onto the court, it pretty much solves itself out as far as knowing what this guy likes to do or where he likes to get the ball and so on. That's the special joy of team sports, particularly a team sport like basketball. I think it's so important. No one guy is more valuable than the next guy. Yeah, you might have your top scorers and your top rebounders, but it's still a team sport, and you can't get open or get the ball unless somebody's passing it to you or setting you up. So I think that's what you take with you, and I think that's the real joy of why basketball, when it's played at its best, is when you see teams like the Chicago Bulls or the old Celtics and stuff like that. They play team basketball, and I think that's why they have success, because everyone enjoys it and everyone does their job and pitches in.
Pretty strong commentary, just going back to the fact that you played less than 30 minutes a game, but yet were an All-American. Obviously, you put a lot of quality into those minutes.
Well, there's still the old joke going around, and I hear it a lot with Michael Jordan. Who was the last guy to hold Kelly Tripucka under 20 points? And that would be Digger Phelps. So yeah, I mean, I averaged 18 points was the highest I averaged at Notre Dame in the 4 years. But at 26 minutes a game, it's difficult to do a whole lot. But we were about team. We had a lot of talent. We had a lot of good guys. And maybe we didn't get to the success that we should have had over those 4 years. 'Cause I think any one of those 4 years, we could have been national champs. In fact, we could have won a couple while I was there. We got to the Final Four my freshman year, but I think that's how talented we were, and really maybe didn't live up to the expectations that we had. But as you know, in NCAA basketball, it's very difficult. You got to be lucky as well as good, and hit the right stride, particularly at the end of the season. But we were always a ranked team, always top 10 every year. So I think our record was like 92-20 or something like that in the 4 years I was there. So I mean, that's nothing to wave bye-bye to, so to speak. So very successful, had a lot of great memories, and obviously it was a prelude to what happens later on, and so I was very, very happy with the opportunity to do what I did.
I do want to touch on what happened later on, and I want to ask you this. What was the feeling the first time you stepped on the floor to take part in your first NBA game?
It's funny. Every athlete, I think, will tell you that they're maybe not always nervous, but yeah, I think it's good to be nervous. I think I was more excited than anything else. I probably wasn't smart enough to realize where I was and take in the moment, exactly what was here, because we never looked ahead. I mean, I had dreams of becoming a professional basketball player. I think any kid does in professional sports, but you don't. It's kind of in the back of your mind, not in the forefront. Maybe a little different these days because it's so prevalent and because of the publicity and such. But I mean, you dream and you pretend you're certain guys, and then you reach the next level and you make your high school team, and you think that's the greatest thing ever. Then you get an opportunity for a scholarship and you think that's the greatest thing ever. Then you play for a national known team and you think that's the greatest ever. So there's always the next step. Then you get drafted, and you don't really even take in the moment. I mean, you're drafted, but does that automatically qualify me as making the team? No. You got to go through training camp. Does that make me qualified to make the team? No. It's not until it actually happens. In other words, what I'm saying, that moment that you really don't take it in. And until I was on that floor the first night of my rookie year against the Milwaukee Bucks and Bob Lanier, did I realize that where I am and what I've done. And we end up winning an exciting game, and I think after it was all over with, then you finally realize that, hey, maybe now, after all those years and all those dreams and all those expectations, I am finally here. So it was an exciting time, and just to make your dream come true. People don't always get to have their dreams come true, and particularly a dream that lasted so long. As a kid, everyone wants to think that they can be the best at something or reach that pinnacle of success, whether it be pro football, pro basketball, or baseball. And I actually got to do that, and to tell my kids about it, or to meet the great people you meet during your travels across the country is a lot of fun. So I take a lot of pride in what I was able to accomplish, and to be able to get where I got.
After a few years of the wars of the NBA, I guess I'll pinpoint you and see if you can tell me the exact time when you knew you were the cagey veteran instead of a newer entry into the league?
I don't think I ever felt comfortable. There's always someone there ready to take your job. Again, it comes with publicity. I came in the league with a guy like Isaiah Thomas. He was the second pick in the draft. I was the 12th pick in the draft, and we were kind of looked upon as the two young guys that were going to turn the franchise around. Well, we both made the All-Star team, as rookies, and so then there was a lot of pressure on us to go to the next level and what have you. So I had a great rookie season. I was made the All-Star team, and you never settle for that. You always want to, what's the next step? So I think after a while and all the plane flights and all the wear and tear, and you start to feel old, I think that's when you finally realize you're a veteran. Whether it's good or bad, you're a veteran, because now it starts to hurt more. So I think after a while you need to pay your dues, so to speak. When you get in the league and they start to put a little bit more responsibility, I think it takes like 3 or 4 years till you feel comfortable. And I think any guy, even though a superstar might come in as a rookie, there's so many older guys. I mean, you're dealing with such a generational gap there as you come in. I mean, it's even worse now with these high school kids coming in. But I mean, as a guy coming out of college, you're 21 years old and you're playing with guys that are sometimes 35, 36. I mean, that's a big spread. So you were told what to do. You sat there and closed your mouth and had big ears and just listened to whatever they told you, and hopefully you can absorb some of that information and use it later on when you become an older guy. And I think it takes that 3 or 4 years to be accepted, and depending on what you did, to really feel comfortable that someone, now might look up to you and you have a little bit more responsibility as far as being a leader.
When you left Detroit, well, first of all, I'll ask you if there was disappointment or anger or any kind of those emotions.
Oh, there was all of those. Oh, it was the worst day of my life. Without a doubt. So many good things that happened to Detroit, and I thought I knew it was a team that was very close.
You could see that?
Absolutely, because we had made trades. Isaiah and I came in, and you had guys, bit players like a John Long, and we made trades for Bill Laimbeer that first year and brought in Vinnie Johnson. Later on, we drafted a Joe Dumars. You just knew this team was very close, because when you get that championship feel, I think it comes down to not so much getting the great star players. The hardest players are the ones that fit the puzzle, to finish the puzzle. And I think it was that close. So they all of a sudden get traded, and knowing that, and as it turned out, they did win 2 or 3 years later. Yes. There's always some regret. But we all don't know what's going to happen from year to year or even day to day. So I mean, you can be disappointed, but that's just the way life is, or sports is. So I was angry, I was disappointed, I was heartbroken, name all those things. It was very difficult. As it turned out, going to Utah was the worst thing in the world for me. It hurt my career. I think it hurt a lot of things to do me, but that's unfortunate. Part of sports is sometimes things are totally out of your control, and I think as an athlete, that's the worst feeling in the world, is when you can't control what's happening. Whether it be a coach or whatever that's dictating your time or doesn't want to use you, not using you right, that can hurt you, because you're at his mercy. You're not running the show. You're just playing under his system or what he tells you to do. So in that regard, it hurt, but I was able to get out of there and go to Charlotte and play for a guy like Dick Harder, who was assistant with the Pistons and Chuck Daly when I was there. So he knew what I was about, and that was a lot of fun. So, sports changes. You never know what's going to happen. I think that's the big picture, the bottom line. Things can happen and change year to year, and you just never know. You just got to take advantage of the opportunity. There might be some good years there and some bad years in there, and you just hope that you can cope with it and be a better person for it.
When you did go to Charlotte, did you consciously take on a different attitude, maybe that of mentor to some of the younger guys, particularly?
Probably, but you see, it was so difficult. That was the year expansion started. Mm-hmm. And the hardest thing as a veteran player at that time is dealing with losing. After being from a winning program and knowing that, hey, yeah, we're going to play hard. We had a great bunch of guys that first year in Charlotte, but let's face it, you're dealing with 12 new guys that come from 12 different teams and not the greatest talent in the world, and you've got to go up against the mighty mites of the NBA on a consistent basis. No matter how hard you play, you're not going to win a lot of games. And we won 20 games, and that 20 felt like 40 the way we played. We were a scrappy bunch of guys, and we played hard. We were in every ball game. We hardly ever got blown out. But you're still dealing with losing on a nightly basis, and for a young guy, that might be easier to take. But being a veteran guy, having been around, that was the last thing you wanted to go through, but unfortunately that's what you had to go through. So that was difficult, and so you try to relay that to the younger guys, and at that time I think there's a big turning point in what kind of generations are coming into the league now versus before. I think they're more aloof and just, you try to tell them and it doesn't really bother them, if they're losing. I think that's the bad thing. They should be just as angry about losing as the veteran players, and I think that's where the attitude started to change in the NBA, and hopefully that in the long run that things won't get totally out of hand. But this game has changed a lot.
Oh, yes.
And the attitudes and the players have changed a lot, and money has a lot to do with that, and some other variables as well. Expansion, I think things have watered down in the league. I don't think, when you bring in 8 new teams or whatever it is, since back in the late 80s or whatever, I mean, there can't be as much talent, and I think that in turn hurts the league. So now you have a fine line between what the great teams are, and then the next level down is really, really bad. It really drops off, and I think that's why you don't see the type of league that you saw back in the 80s. I think when that was probably the best era of basketball, arguably anyhow. When you look back at what Magic and Bird and Dr. J and all those other guys did, it was a great time for basketball. Was throughout the 80s. So that was hard to deal with, just losing. I was hoping to go somewhere else where I could at least have an opportunity for a championship or, play on a winning program again. And that's hard to do with. But once again, we get back to you never know what's going to happen from year to year.
You've always had the good attitude, always, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of most, always gave 100%, no matter the score of the game. I want to ask you, what's your opinion of the guys that say, hey, you know what, I'm going to mail it in tonight, or you know what, trade me to a contender. I don't want to be here.
Yeah, well, that's what we deal with. What I tried to get into just a moment ago was their attitude is a little bit more laid back. I was always taught, either watching pro basketball or reading about it, had a little history of the game, knew the players. That was something you took pride in. I mean, I knew everybody and who played, and growing up, I mean, whether it was playing 3-on-3 in the backyard with your brothers, I mean, that was life and death. So you took that on the floor. I mean, it's funny because back in the late 80s, early 90s with the expansion, you walk in the locker room, and I knew it right then that as a rookie, my first year in the league, after a loss, I would take it like it was the end of the earth. And this is the NBA, there's 82 games, you got to, you got to find a median there. And Chuck Daly used to say, never get too high, never get too low. And you learn with that, but you still should be upset you lost. And I would go over and play games in my mind after the game, what could I have done better or whatever. In the late 80s and early 90s expansion, you walk in the locker room and the guys are laughing and they're worried, they're talking about before the game where they're going to go out and what they're going to do. And I would sit there and shake my head and going, this is totally wrong. I mean, not to be ready to play and to concentrate on what's at hand in a half an hour. Instead, they're worried about, where we're going to go out tonight and what we're going to do and whatever. It means your mind's not on the game, and you're paid to do that. This is your job. If you can't concentrate for 2 hours a day, then there's something wrong because it's a pretty good life. So that's what's disturbing to me, I think. And for me, that's one thing that you touched on that I don't think anybody could ever criticize me for, because I always felt like it was a life and death situation. I mean, you got to go out there and put all your blood, sweat, and tears into it on any given night, because you never know when it might be your last. And that might wear you down in the end and maybe not prolong your career as long as it should be. But I believe in playing all out and trying to succeed as often as possible. And maybe now it's a little more laid back because they're worried about extending the career, and I make so much money, and now we fly in private planes and things like that. So things have changed. That's the bottom line. Everybody knows it and whatever. So that's why I enjoy watching a team like the Bulls. Very professional. A guy like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. I mean, they just will themselves to win, and they're great leaders, and they show an example in the way they play team basketball, and they just believe that they will not beat. And even when maybe they don't have it on a certain night or don't have the talent maybe they had in years past, they still find a way to win. I think that's why I enjoy them. And I keep telling people year after year, the Bulls, the Bulls, the Bulls. And I think more people wish that they would lose because they're tired of seeing them, but there's just something about them and the way they go about their business that's so professional and so such a joy to watch that I have a lot of respect for what they've done over the years. And who could not have respect for what Michael Jordan's done?
As a guy that's been up and down the court hundreds of millions of times, it must be.
Feels like it.
Is Jordan the best ever, knowing the game the way you do?
I don't know how you label that, how you say that or judge that. Arguably, absolutely. I mean, if I said Michael Jordan, you can't argue against me. You might have someone else that you think so. If I say Larry Bird, I mean, you can't argue against that. I mean, you might have someone else. So I mean, yeah, in a way, it's hard to argue. I don't know what makes the best. I mean, is it championships? Is it scoring? Is it, what is classified as the best? I mean, there were so many great players when I grew up. I mean, I thought Jerry West was tremendous. I mean, you look at Wilt Chamberlain. He averaged 50 points in 1 year. He would average 30 rebounds. I mean, that's unheard of. Some of the records that he has, I mean, that's hard to argue. Look at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, what he's done, all the scoring and the consistency and the sky hook. He changed the game. I mean, what Bird and Magic did in their championships and how they played the game, and of course what Michael Jordan's done. There's so many, and I'm leaving a ton of players out, whether it be John Havlicek or Elgin Baylor or Bill Russell. The list goes on and on. So many great players, but what makes you the best? I think Michael Jordan, I will say this, is probably the best athlete to ever play the game, the most exciting player to ever play the game because of what he can do. And along with that, he's a great person. He does so many different things. He makes people around him better, which is a unique quality. And he just has a will about him to win. He doesn't ever want to be denied. And most times he's right. So, I mean, he does some fantastic thing. He's a lot of fun to watch. And I think more than anything he'll be remembered for is not just the championships, but what kind of player he was when put with other players and how he made them succeed and bring their game to another level. And that's a unique quality, without a doubt, one of the greatest and maybe the greatest ever to play this game.
Even though you and he, along with all the other NBA players, are peers,
right?
Do you still look at him sometimes and shake your head and say, how the hell does he do that?
You used to shake your head when you had to guard him sometimes and say how he did that. Absolutely. And even at that age now where he's 35, 36 years old, he's had to change his game to watch it develop where he wasn't a great shooter and then he made himself into a really good shooter. He used to be recklessly abandoned to the basket, all out every time. Now all of a sudden he's more of a jump shooter. He's changed his game, but whatever he changes his game, he still finds a way to be the best and still finds a way to hurt you and beat you on a consistent basis. So that's very unique. But there are times when you're out on the floor and you watch him, I always admired and amazed at his ability to take you on the dribble and start to go by and able to pull up, stop, and jump before you even actually get ready to jump to get a hand in his face. He's so quick of stopping and getting up. That point of just stopping on a dime and getting up and rising before you're getting yourself ready. I mean, that's very, very difficult to defend, very, very hard to do, and that's what I think makes him number 23. I mean, that's a very unique quality and why he's done that to everybody. So I think everyone that's ever played against him somewhere along the line has been a poster for him.
I want to take you back to Detroit again. Chuck Daly, basketball genius?
Well, I don't know what qualifies a genius. Chuck would tell you he's a pauper. So the prince of pessimism. That's what he always was. You never know.
The way he dresses, though.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. He Chuck took a lot of pride and still does in his clothes, and he does a very good job on most nights with that. We get him every once in a while. We see him on TV, and he might get a call from one of our good friends in Detroit telling him we don't like that jacket or get rid of it or whatever. But Chuck's really a pessimist. He always He always thinks that the next day I'll be out on the street or whatever. But what he does very well, he knows how to deal with players. He knows how to deal with attitudes. He knows how to deal with personalities. And that's as a basketball coach, particularly on a professional level, you've got to be a little bit of everything. You've got to be a coach, you've got to be a father, you've got to be a teacher, you've got to be a psychiatrist, you've got to be a psychologist, you've got to be a babysitter. I mean, you've got to be all those things. So you've got to deal with 12 different personalities. Whoever needs a good swift kick in the butt and the other guy might need a little pat on the back. It takes that, and he's very good. He understands who's going to be his leader and get him on his side to make them believe that this is how we're going to run things, and then everything else kind of falls in line through the leader. And so whether it be that Isaiah Thomas is your leader and Chuck and Isaiah are okay, but he treats everybody equal. I mean, obviously the star guys maybe going to get a little preferential treatment, but nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, they're expected to practice and be on time like everybody else. I mean, that's the way it should be. This is a team. So, but he was very good at mixing and getting people to play together and to have one common goal, and that's why he's been so successful. I think people enjoy playing for him, and he's easygoing, but he knows when to push those buttons to get you going. When it's time to work, it's time to work. When it's time to play, you can play.
All the things that you said a coach needs to be. I'm going to show this to their agents. I think I'll get them a raise.
Maybe if I get a piece of it, you might be in for something. But it's definitely very true, and I think that bears out. And you see the coaches that get fired and continue to be recycled or whatever. They don't know how to handle certain aspects of the coaching. It's not just much X's and O's. I think Larry Bird proved that. I mean, you watch Larry coach, and I bet you there's not a lot of people out there that thought he would be a very good coach. Just because he's so quiet and he's so competitive as a player that it would be hard for him to contain himself, not wanting to get out there and not dealing with it. But to watch him coach, to see him sit there, he never changed expression when you're winning or losing. He never got up. He doesn't run up and down. You know, I think he just proves all that coaching theory and just squashes it right in the ground. That you have to be a lunatic running up and down the sidelines. He just gives them instructions, tells them what he expects of them. And every once in a while, he might get up and say, you know, call you over to the side, not embarrass you. He didn't like having a coach that was going to berate players in front of 15,000 people. Look, if you're not going to do it this way, or you're not going to do it correctly, you're going to come over and sit next to me, and I'll find someone else. I mean, that's about as animated as he would ever get. And I think that's so much fun and to watch and to know that it doesn't take a whole lot to be a great coach. You know, you can have X's and O's, but if you just give them instruction and give them some leadership, that you leave it up to them. And I think the players in turn will take that to heart and say, hey, we can do this ourselves. You know, so I think it was fascinating to watch him coach this year, and he did a great job. They were very successful.
Is coaching maybe something Kelly Tripucka wants to undertake?
I always tell everybody I'm too smart to coach, but you never close any doors. I don't know. I don't know if I could handle the recruiting of college or whatever. I think I'd enjoy the pro aspect of it to a certain degree, but that's a tough life. You know, after being a player and then continue to do that when you've got family and moving around and it's become a year-round thing, it's not an easy thing to do. I give them a lot of credit because it's a stress builder, and you know we've seen it kill a lot of coaches. You know, it just wears you down, and it takes a lot to be a special coach. I think Phil Jackson has handled it so well, and obviously having Michael Jordan makes that a little bit easier. But I think you can't take anything away from a guy like Phil Jackson, because it's very easy to screw up a good team. But he had a unique way of dealing with them and keeping them together that they continue to be successful year after year after year with all that pressure on to keep winning, to win 3 in a row 2 different times. He must be doing something right. I think he's done a miraculous job.
The wars between Detroit and Denver and Detroit and San Antonio, we're here in Vegas. I don't know if they could post a total high enough for those games. What was that like? Just hurry up and shoot?
No, you know, everybody thinks it was that. You know, things are more sophisticated now. I don't think the shooting's as good, so the games, scouting has become so prevalent because of the computer age and everything. I mean, they're so sophisticated with their scouting, so now teams know inside and out what the other team's doing. I think a lot of teams feel that once the playoffs start, the basketball comes down a little bit as far as the scoring, because they concentrate so much on defense, and I think defense wins championships. So they figure if we play like this during the regular season, it'll be easy to make the transfer to the postseason. Whereas in the past, you might get a team that scores and runs and whatever, but they know they can't play that way in the playoffs. You've got to tone it down. It was too difficult to make the transition. So I think a combination of all those things now has made the game a lot more, you know, slow down, a lot more conducive to the way they want to play during the playoffs. For us back then, we had some great offensive players. It wasn't so much the defense wasn't bad. You know, granted, it'd be difficult, but when you have great offensive players, you're not going to stop them. You don't stop them. They only stop themselves. You know, trying to get over screens, and these guys can shoot, and we used to run. We look to run. They don't look to run anymore. So it was a different type of basketball, but I think the fans enjoyed the basketball back then more so than they did now. I think if you ask anybody, they want to see points on the board. You know, it doesn't mean
absolutely.
Matador defense, let people go. We played hard. You had great players. You had less teams, so the talent level went a little bit deeper on every bench. And when you look back at just the teams you mentioned, the Denvers with Alex English and Kiki Vandeweghe and Dan Issel and people like that, down to San Antonio with George Gervin and James Silas and Artis Gilmore and people like that. I mean, you had some great offensive talent. Of course, we had people that could score as well, whether it be Isaiah Thomas or Joe Dumars or myself, Vinnie Johnson. You had people that could put the ball in the basket. They don't have that many people that can put the ball in the basket on a consistent basis now.
You mentioned you guys looked to run, and a lot of teams don't do that anymore. I've noticed there isn't the propensity for the fast break off of a missed foul shot. Let me ask you this. As a player, is it possible that the salaries have gotten so high that the guys are like, okay, let's just relax. Let's take our time. Is there the hunger anymore? Is there the hunger?
I don't think it's that. I don't know what it is. You talk about on a miss. I mean, you had assignments where you go, where the ball goes. You find that point guard and you push, and you got two guys that were greyhounds that fill those lanes and get out. And when you got a guy like Isaiah Thomas, for instance, that has the ball in his hand, hey, I'm going to be out there. I want to get as many easy baskets as I can. I know if I fill the lane and he gets anywhere to me, I'm going to get a layup. And that's the whole idea of the game, to get easy shots. Why have to work and bust your butt to get over screens and fight inside and to score against triple and double teams consistently? You got to get out and get easy baskets, and that was the best way and the easiest way to do it. That's what made the Lakers so successful. I mean, even the Celtics ran a great fast break with their talent and those big guys. I don't think necessarily they stress it enough right now. I don't know if they have the talent enough now to do it like they did then. And you've got to have some guys that can fill the lane and get out and run. You got to have a point guard that can handle the ball and distribute. And you've got to want to get easy basket. I think any coach will tell you they would love to get easy baskets. Whether they're stressing it enough or they're afraid or they don't feel like they have the talent, that's a whole nother story. But I always thought basketball was a game of who can try to get the easiest baskets on a most consistent basis was the team that was going to win. Now you really have to work. The game has changed so much now where all the NBA, it seems to me at times, has become is a two-man game, screen and roll, or they post up or they go one-on-one. It's just constantly over and over. Every time down you see the same thing. They clear out to one side with three guys and they post to one guy and the guy throws in, they wait to get a double team. He kicks it out and you reverse it for a jump shot. If he doesn't get double team, he tries to go to the hole. Otherwise, they come out and they run a 1-4 set, and the point guard or whoever it may be handling the basketball, be it Grant Hill or whatever, tries to go one-on-one and beat the defense. If he gets double team, they kick it out for a jump shot. So, I mean, it's become so easy to know what's going to happen versus before, how they used to run your offense with precision and get 4 or 5, 6 passes. If one thing was shut down by a team, then you have the second and third option. They don't do that anymore. It's a totally different game.